5 Live.
Good morning, you're with 5 Live Breakfast. So we're talking about political protest, that kind of direct action thing that we often see. We saw it at the weekend with the protesters with Nigel Farage when he was having a pub lunch with his family. He's a man, of course, who is, he likes to portray himself as a man of people, having a pub lunch, having a pint. Some people are saying he's fair game. Some people are saying it's absolutely disgusting behaviour. Dan Glass, we spoke to earlier on, who was the organiser of the Beyond UKIP cabaret. He was one of the protesters. Big cabaret, he described it as a cabaret of diversity, poetry and readings from different groups. Members of Bangladeshi community, Muslim community, breastfeeding mothers, people living with HIV. And, Nigel Farage came out and sped off in his car, and there was a bit of a kerfuffle. We've had, just recently, politicians having eggs thrown at them, splattering over their nice suits. Jim Murphy, the now Scottish Labour leader in Scotland during the referendum campaign, was egged. And this gentleman, Dan Glass, to whom we spoke earlier on, once glued himself to Gordon Brown. So how far is too far? Richard's in Macclesfield. Good morning. Joel's in Bradford. Hello, Joe.
Hi.
And Peter is in Eastbourne as well. And we want to hear from you. 0500 909 693. First of all, let's hear from Mr. Glass. We heard from him earlier on, one of the protesters at the weekend. This is what he said.
The point of the day was to get lots of different communities who are affected by the prejudice and abuse from UKIP and such politicians to get together to support each other, understand each other's issues and celebrate our diversity, which is something to be proud of, and to live today a world which we want to live in, which is beyond UKIP's ideologies.
Well, yes, but they have a very significant support. Through democracy, he's an elected politician. Do you believe that politicians are fair game when they're having a private lunch?
We all need to have a day off, but the thing is, we can't get a day off from the prejudice and abuse that they spill every day when people read the papers. I think it's really important to say that voting once every 5 years is not enough. We also need to make our voices heard the rest of the time, and we need to keep presenting our vision of how the world should be and to hold politicians to account. It's not an either-or to vote or to take action at the grassroots. The media want to set up this silly idea that you're either a crazy activist or a sensible voter, but we know that's a false dichotomy. Voting is important because voting forces the parties to pay attention to these different demographics.
Mr. Farage said to you, you've got sad little lives, Dan.
Yes. Well, he was... I'm not even going to enter his games. He was the one who was looking sad. Even calling people with HIV scum.
I'm sure he wasn't referring to those specifically with HIV.
Well, he knew what we were all about. He knew. He charged through a crowd of breastfeeding mothers, calling them scum. And that is not good behaviour.
Right, Richard ready to go, as is Joel, as is Peter. We've got Charlie Kimber as well from the Socialist Workers' Party. Good morning, Charlie.
Good morning.
I know you're full on with direct protest and been involved in many over the years. Peter in Eastbourne, what do you say? Direct protest, is anything fair game here when it comes to politicians? They raise their heads above the parapet. What do you think, Peter?
Well, I think these people that are throwing eggs and behaving like this are undemocratic propagandists out to destroy democracy act in this country. They're nothing but they are the scum of the country, and they're out to destroy our democratic system.
Charlie Kimber, what would you say to Peter?
Well, we didn't get the vote by voting for it, you know. We got it by people campaigning and fighting and striking and taking to the streets. Women didn't get the vote because it was given to them from above. They got it by their campaigning activity, which involved going far wider than the sorts of things that happened against Mr. Farage at the weekend. And if he attacks women, gay people, lesbians, immigrants, Muslims, disabled people, it's not surprising that some people want to protest against him about that. I think he's a very brittle man, in truth. He's the man of the people who doesn't seem to want to meet the people.
I'm afraid you're
This is the truth. He's a man of the people who doesn't want to meet the people.
A man of the people who doesn't want to meet the people. Peter, come back.
I think your protests are outrageous and undemocratic, and you are the scum of the country, quite frankly, because you're behaving in an undemocratic and completely bullish way. You're trying to bully people into your beliefs, which are...
There's no bullying.
Charlie Kimber, we're embracing
Yes,
free speech this morning. Charlie Kimber, respond. Then I'll bring the other callers in. Peter, I'm not
there's no bullying involved here.
Oh, yes, you are.
Peter, let Charlie Kimber finish.
Mr. Farage has systematically attacked people in a racist and prejudiced manner. It's not surprising they want to fight.
Peter, free speech. Je suis Peter.
And he's
Je suis Charlie Kimber. Let's hear him.
He's a very brittle campaigner who isn't able to stand up to people campaigning against him. Let me just say one other thing about the news values of this. This protest is on the front page of many newspapers, and you're doing it now on your phone in, and I'm glad we're discussing it. There was a demonstration of 10,000 people against racism and UKIP in London on Saturday. Coverage by the BBC, zero. 2,500 in Glasgow. Coverage by the BBC, virtually zero. Now that tells us something about your news values. It was entirely justified to protest against Mr. Farage, and I hope that Stand Up to UKIP and others will continue those protests in the future.
I'm sorry,
democracy is not just...
Charlie Kimber makes an interesting point about news values and what hits the headlines, but you've got to say as well, Charlie, that these protesters have done a good job when it comes to getting their story on the front page, and as they would see it. This is the whole thing about one of the guys, Dan Glass, we spoke to him earlier on. He glued himself to Gordon Brown. We had the man who, of course, disrupted the boat race. We have lots of egg throwing. But I suppose, and Richard, I'll come to you in a second, likewise, Joel, I suppose, Charlie Kimber, the question is, you talk about the vote, hard won, hard fought for. We have the vote.
And the vote is very important.
If you don't like what these people are saying, don't throw eggs at them, don't disrupt their pub lunches, vote against them and vote them out.
I will be doing that. I will be voting for the Trade Unionist and Socialist Coalition. I will be campaigning for a vote. Voting is very, very important. People should vote, and it's something precious. We fought for it, and we should use it. But it's not the whole of democracy. If we simply leave between elections the politicians who are utterly unaccountable, we know that the majority of people were against the Iraq War. We know the majority of people are, for example, for the renationalisation of the railways. There's no reflection of that in the Parliament as we see it. They're unaccountable. People have to fight. Direct action has won great gains in the past, and it's necessary now.
Is there a danger it's counterproductive when decent people, whatever their political affiliations, see something like this and they think that's unfair? And, in your terms, it might be counterproductive in raising the profile and increasing the support of the United Kingdom Independence Party.
Well, I believe the most effective form of protest is mass protest involving thousands and tens of thousands of people. The great movement of the Stop the War movement during the Iraq War.
Or the Countryside Alliance, or whatever.
The great movement against the poll tax. The great movement against racism that we saw on Saturday and wasn't reported by the media. These are the great movements which we need. But I'm also for innovative, lively, vibrant protest. And to be honest, if you're a politician, you have to expect a bit of that.
This is the thing. Okay, let's throw that one out.
In cotton wool, can you?
You've got to
you expect it.
Point made. You got to expect it. You're there, Richard in Macclesfield. Hello. Politicians, they put themselves up there. They make themselves liable for this and exposed to this, and it's fair game. Richard, what do you think?
Well, not exposed to that. Morning, by the way.
Morning.
For me, whichever side of the argument you're coming from on whatever issue, a protest is easy to explain. Protest is if you have an opinion on a certain topic, issue, you believe in it, you want to campaign for it, you want to educate other people as to what your point of view is and why, they should agree with you. But when you're so sure of your point of view on whatever issue, when you're so sure of your point of view that you must stop other people expressing their opinion because they're so wrong, that's harassment and that's dangerous, and that does frighten me that we have people that are so sure of what they believe in. They're so sure that they must stop other people expressing their point of view. Then that's harassment.
Nobody's stopping Mr. Farage putting forward his opinion. He appears on Question Time every other issue. He appears on the newspapers all the time. He's on the radio all the time. He's on the television all the time. He holds public meetings all the time. No one's stopping him putting forward his views. He has a very easy ride from the media.
People do try and stop him putting... What happened when he went up to Scotland? And what did the SNP do? Because they were so sure that he was wrong. They stopped him. I'm not.
Well, he was chased into a pub on that occasion. So if he chased out of a pub, chased into a pub, whatever. Let's bring in Stephen in Surrey. Stay there, Richard. We'll get Stephen's view on this as well. Direct action.
He's insane.
Hello, Stephen.
Morning.
Morning, sir.
Yeah, I think it's about time we had a bit more direct action, to be honest with you, because we've got MPs at the moment. You only got to take the incident with the weekend with Dudley. You take about MPs who are claiming reefs on expenses. You've got MPs in prison for expenses. Numerous things are happening, and they seem to think when they get elected, it's a 5-year bulletproof vest where they can do what they want, how they want, and when they want. They're not. They're elected members of Parliament who work for the people, and direct action sometimes actually brings them down to the level where they might think, well, maybe this is what the people really need and really want, and it sort of levels the ground a little bit for these people, because Westminster is becoming a very, 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 very big ivory tower at the moment, and the ordinary people in this country are actually sick to death of the way they behave, and direct action is a form of the people telling these people who actually work for us, enough's enough. Come on, let's get back and get into Parliament and do what you actually do and what you pay for.
All right, Joel, are you with Stephen on that? Joel in Bedford. Hi, Joel.
Hi. My concern is whatever the position one has for or against UKIP, for or against Nigel Farage,
or any party, because there are direct protests against.
That's fine. As long as people have a political view, even if it is repugnant to me, at least they have a political view and they are going to try to organize for it. I don't have a problem with that. The particular issue with Nigel Farage is the symbolism that he uses. For Nigel Farage, he presents himself as an ordinary bloke who frequents the pub and has a pint. Every picture virtually of Nigel Farage, maybe the odd one.
So you think it's a photo opportunity, and if it's a photo opportunity, it's a politician being cynical and engineering that photo opportunity. Thus, it's okay to exert political pressure because he's a politician 24/7.
I'm not that definite about it, because my concern is his family was there, Nicky. His children were there, and they must have been terrified. The difficulty is, where do I place responsibility? Responsibility I place squarely with Nigel Farage, because, as you say, it is likely that he was cynical.
Okay, let's put that to Charlie Kimber. He's entitled to a family life, Charlie Kimber. Let me ask you, something else just occurred to me. When you guys, Socialist Workers' Party, and others, when you protest, for example, against the British National Party, against the BNP or far-right groups, as a far-left group, as a far-right group, you'll throw eggs at them, but you won't debate with them. I don't get that.
The British National Party are a fascist organisation who are of a different character to that of UKIP.
I'm not saying that, but you'll throw eggs at them, but you'll throw... People in your groups will throw eggs at them, but you won't debate with them.
Because I don't believe that fascist organisations ought to be normalised. The idea that there are...
Don't you beat people with arguments with words?
They're not a normal political party like others. Wherever they seek to organise, it leads to racist violence and, in some occasions, to people being killed. They're not a normal organisation, and we try to stop them.
They're a political party, and they've had members of the European Parliament. What situations have people been...
Yes, but the reality is that the policy that's been used against them, of stopping them marching, of stopping them having the normal publicity that political parties get, has been successful in Britain in a way that, if you look in France, for example, the Front National of Marine Le Pen has continued to grow.
But they've got do you respect democracy, though?
I don't want to see the fascists who are out to smash democracy and to take away all the democratic rights that people have get a stronger foothold in Britain.
Okay.
And therefore, I think that's justified. UKIP is not a fascist organisation, and therefore I wouldn't say that they have to be prevented from meeting or should be treated in the same way as the British National Party. Do people have a right to a family life? Indeed they do. But let's remember that it was Nigel Farage who said that the children of immigrants should not be allowed to go immediately to state schools, that demonises the Muslim religion of children in Britain, who puts forward policies on the National Health Service.
Okay, we understand. We understand.
Don't have this hypocrisy about the poor children. And anyway, the protesters said they didn't target
Let's talk about the direct action. Thank you very much for those thoughts. Of course, just to balance it up, the people would be a lot of people would say, well, this is an example of the far left criticising the far right, and some people would say that they are just as bad in many ways. Some people wouldn't. 0500 909 693. Are politicians fair game? Do call us now. It's 9:22.
This is 5 Live Breakfast.
Just quite a lot of texts against this protest, quite a few for it. Just one here. It's very rich hearing a Trotskyist calling another party undemocratic. So the debate goes on. 0500 909 693. Brendan's in Hartlepool and Debbie is in Northamptonshire. Debbie, meet Brendan. Brendan,
morning.
Good morning. Debbie. Hello, Debbie.
Good morning.
You go first, Debbie.
Well, we went on a corporate hospitality do down to London. I went to a pantomime. I got our children with us.
Yeah.
And then we went to a restaurant. And Tony Blair was there with his wife, mother-in-law, daughter. I think the daughter's friend was there as well. And the little boy, is his name Leo? The little one?
Yes, that's right.
Well, he was little. He won't be anymore.
Yes, he was
little
quite
Leo
little
Blair.
at the time.
Yeah.
It was quite a long time ago. My oldest son is now 24, and I think he was about 10 at the time.
All right, yes.
And nobody approached them. They left them in peace. But it was a time when there was the fuel crisis. You know, when there was, they wouldn't let the tankers out of the depots. So everyone was like being restricted on how much fuel they could put in their car. And my oldest son was very aware of this because sometimes I had to say to him, no, I can't take you somewhere because I need to keep the fuel. You know, your dad needs it to get to the train station and things like that.
So what about this direct action and hassling, shall we say, politicians?
I think it's absolutely disgusting. He was out with his family, you know, just having a family lunch. You might not agree. I didn't agree with Tony Blair's, all of his policies, but on no, you know, I would not have approached him whilst he was out with his family in a million years. The man is entitled to a private life, and his family are entitled to have a dinner with him. And, you know, what they've done, you know, this thing about breastfeeding mothers, I mean, what's that all about?
Well, I tell you, it's about giving babies nutrition. But Brendan in Hartlepool, come back to what Debbie said.
I agree with what she says. The guy was on a private family lunch on a Sunday. He shouldn't be hassled like that. It was completely wrong. Your other guy, Mr. Campbell, I wonder how he'd like it if people who disagreed with the Socialist Workers' Party decided to invade him next time he's at a beef eater restaurant or wherever on a Sunday. But what I was going to say was, how you know, direct action. What happens if it spreads into like our Charlie Hebdo? You know, direct action is one person might be going to a pub and protesting. Other people might say, "Let's get a Kalashnikov."
Well, I think there's a.
Well, you say that.
Yeah,
but,
well, I do.
You know,
yeah.
It's not. There's fanaticism. It's not that far away from lots of people, is it?
Yeah.
You know, the socialist workers want to do what they want to do and stop the war. That was a good thing.
Yeah.
Stop the war campaign.
But they want to stop far right groups and right groups marching. So some people saying, and a lot of people saying on the text, there's a huge hypocrisy about that.
He got 4.5 million people voting for him at the last European elections. He had a mandate to say what he wants to say. You can't disagree with. Well, you can disagree with him. That's the whole idea of democracy. Yeah. But you can't say that he's got no support. There's quite a large proportion of the electorate want to hear what he says. And these people that go out and invaded him on yesterday. I mean, I don't know what happened. I don't suppose
they're going to carry on hearing what he says, though, aren't they? Because he's going to be.
Yeah, but they shouldn't go and chase him into a pub and scare his kids.
scare the kids to go and hide.
He's going to get.
If you don't agree with his policies, don't vote for him.
Well, this is what people say.
But don't go and terrorise his family when he's out just having a lunch.
Couldn't
It's as
agree more.
simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what did happen.
That's what democracy is all about. Like I say, I didn't agree with Tony Blair's policies, but when I met him in the pub, everyone stayed away from him. My sons went and spoke to him, and he was most charming and most kind to them.
Interesting.
So it did sort of, make me a little bit more sympathetic to his views.
Yeah, listen, Brendan and Debbie, let's find out.
Start egging him or anything.
No, you didn't throw an egg at him. That's good. You're in a restaurant, you want to eat the eggs. You don't want to throw in. James Lumley was having lunch in the pub with his 5-year-old daughter when the whole Farage fandango unfolded. Hello, James.
Hello, Nicky.
Oh, how are you this morning? You were in the eye of the storm, or the storm of the egg, or whatever, or what happened?
Something like that. Yeah.
What happened?
I'm fine, thanks. Well, it was quite interesting. We'd noticed before we went into the pub that there were lots of UKIP protesters in fancy dress wandering around. So when I saw Farage and his family at the bar at the front, I guessed something like this was going to happen. But basically, he was there at the front, clearly with his family. People swarmed in from either side, from the two doors, playing Sister Sledge, We Are Family, very loudly on a sound system, and started screaming at him. The landlady asked them to leave, quite politely, and they just turned up the volume. And people shouting, "I want to breastfeed my baby." I couldn't see anything then because there was such a crowd. Mm-hmm. I assume he was trying to leave because somebody said, "Don't touch me." And then as soon as he'd gone, everybody swarmed off after him. But the thing I think that nobody's mentioned is the poor landlady of the pub.
Yes.
Because, there's protest is one thing, and you've had some very valid arguments over the last half hour, but somebody was running business. Sunday lunch is a very important time of the week, and she had people coming in disrupting her business.
Yes.
She asked them to leave, they didn't.
Was it clearly a private family lunch? There was no photo opportunity going on?
It was clearly a private family lunch. It was absolutely clearly a private family lunch. I stood at the bar. It was quite a narrow area that he was in. He was with people that he clearly knew. He was very relaxed. He was petting somebody's dog. There were kids around. It wasn't a photo opportunity. He was wearing a suit and tie. He was wearing his Nigel Farage costume. But I presume that
his Nigel Farage costume. What's that?
Well, that funny pinstripe and stuff like that, which sort of marks him
so
out.
he wasn't in a jumper and slacks. He wasn't.
No, he wasn't in a jumper and slacks. No. But all the same, I don't necessarily think the fact that he was in a stockbroker suit was a sign that he was there on public duty. It was clearly a family get together.
Yeah, and so they burst in to the music of Sister Sledge, We Are Family, yes. And of course we're hearing as well that his children got in the melee, got lost in music, got lost
yes.
in the melee of it all.
Yes.
Did you witness any of that?
Yes, because I assumed that the girls who were there were part of his family. I didn't know whether he was children or whether they were his children or nephews or nieces or something. But a few minutes after the whole thing kicked off and then ended, they came back into the pub, and they had been separated, and a friend of theirs, an adult, looked after them. So yes, they definitely had been separated from their parents during the
They found them later on. Yeah.
Yeah, a relative found them very quickly, and then the police came around. But yeah, they were separated.
And were the breastfeeding mums? Were they actually breastfeeding in the pub, or were they just? In close proximity to Mr. Farage.
I really do hope what they're running with dogs, because those if they were babies, they're being treated quite roughly. Really? So.
Okay,
yeah.
and everyone else in the pub, did everything kind of stop, and as people stared at what was going on? Do people carry on with their roast beef?
Everyone carried on to some extent, and then after they left, people just carried on eating. It was quite an odd situation, because whilst the restaurant on the other side was packed, the bar where we were sitting was less full. So yeah, people just sort of. I assumed that everybody around there were locals who knew Farage, so were we're keeping quiet.
Oh, was it a menu service or a help yourself carvery? I know it's not a necessary.
It was menu service.
Absolutely. And what did you plump for? The roast beef or the chicken? What did you have? The roast beef, yeah.
The roast beef. Yeah.
Right, I haven't got time to ask you the big question, which is mustard or horseradish. But listen, thanks for painting a picture of what happened, James. Thank you very much. For getting in touch. Listen, thank you. James Lumley there. So, direct protest, are politicians fair game because of what they do and because of what they say? 0500 909 693. It's 9:33. It's 9:40, and we're talking about politicians, direct action, direct protest. Are they fair game? If they're having a nice Sunday lunch, is it okay for opponents of comprising various issues to burst in, disrupt that lunch, as happened to Mr. Farage yesterday, or to throw an egg? Remember that guy threw an egg at John Prescott? Remember what he got back? Andy's in Kent. Darren's in Lincolnshire. Good morning, Darren. Good morning, Andy. Good morning as well to Charlotte.
Good morning.
Charlotte Leslie.
Good morning.
Charlotte Leslie's with us, Andy and Darren, Conservative MP for Bristol North West. Hello, Charlotte Leslie. Good morning.
Hello, morning.
Good morning. You had your office sprayed with graffiti by anti-fracking campaigners. What was that like for you?
I did. It saddened me, actually. It was quite shocking to begin with. And it saddened me. But look, I'm in the public eye. If I didn't want to be exposed to stuff like this, if I can't stand the heat, I probably should get out of the kitchen. But it doesn't mean it's right, and it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. But actually what saddened me was that one individual obviously cared, and that's a good thing. We want people to care about stuff that's going on in our world, but couldn't find any other expression for it other than an aerosol can and some oil-based paint.
Can you understand, though, these people have deeply held and sincere views and massive concerns about the future of our planet. They see this as another step towards environmental hell. There's nothing being done about it by the mainstream parties, no recognition of it. Can you understand their frustration?
Yeah, I can understand their frustration, and that's what makes me sad. I mean, I went into politics not because I liked politics, but because I didn't like politics, and I wanted to change it. And we all do that in our own way from the inside. And what I wanted to say to this person was, look, you don't like what I stand for, stand against me. Get involved, join the Green Party if you think that represents you, perhaps try and stand as an independent. But if you want politics to change and you want our policies to change, we need you inside, not just spraying things on the outside, because that actually doesn't change anything. Actually, probably didn't serve their purpose, because even people who are anti-fracking, and no one's pro-fracking. I'm not pro-fracking. It's I think it's the least.
The companies who are organising it would probably be described.
Vested interests would be pro-fracking, but I think most political parties make a judgment. Is it safer to be energy self-sufficient when we have people like Putin and the Middle East as our main?
I understand those arguments. I understand those. I want to get away from specific arguments this morning on the principle. Have you had an egg thrown at you?
Not yet, but I'm sure after this programme I probably will.
What do you think, Mr. Farage, or these protesters will have benefited most from yesterday's protest?
I suspect Mr. Farage will have benefited most. But there's a bigger point about people. A lot of people say, I don't like politics, don't want anything to do with it. Well, if those people never get involved, politics will never change. I've got a slogan: if you love politics, you probably shouldn't be allowed anywhere near it.
It's too long for a badge.
I have to do a little banner across your chest or something.
Thank you very much, Charlotte Leslie. We bring on, if I may, Andy and Darren, Sarah in Wigan. Hello, Sarah.
Hi.
And we got Alison, who was amongst the protesters yesterday. Good morning, Alison.
Morning.
Which part of it were you? Were the breastfeeders, the Muslims, the Bangladeshis? What was your thing yesterday against Mr. Farage?
I went along as a support. I was asked by a friend to support. So, just as in solidarity as an ally to all the different groups involved.
Yeah, what was, from your perspective, briefly, because I want to... Sarah, meet Alison. Hello, Sarah.
Hello.
Meet Alison. I'll get you to talk about this in just a moment. That's what it's all about. What happened then, Alison? Give us a couple of minutes on that.
Yeah, what happened was we arrived. It was a very, very fun atmosphere. We went into a pub actually across the road from the pub where Nigel Farage was, and we had a party. It was very, very gentle. We had a beautiful rainbow cake. We had artwork. We put up lovely rainbow banners everywhere.
Did you know he was in the pub across the road? Yeah.
We did. over the course of the protest know that he was in the pub across the road. Yeah, we didn't at the beginning. But the main point was that it was a very, very gentle thing. There weren't people arriving to be aggressive, to shout, any kind of thing like that. It was it was a party, and a very kind of sweet, family-friendly party at that.
Yeah.
And a party to demonstrate diversity. You know, we had a diversity cabaret, and that was the idea, to demonstrate that Britain is an inclusive place. That's how we want it to be. We want to care for each other. We want to show respect for all the different groups that make up our community, and we want our community to be a safe place.
Are you worried? What about? Wasn't it a very safe place for Mr. Farage in the pub with his children, though? Was it?
Well, actually, we were very, very gentle with him. He got up and he left the pub, and that's his choice. But nobody has been aggressive with him at all in any way. And I think actually it's a fairly cynical bit of spin to kind of try to make out that protesters were the aggressive ones. I mean, we are not under threat from protesters in this country. What we're under threat from is UKIP and the establishment parties, which would like the status quo to remain exactly as it is.
Are you voting in the next election? Are you voting? Will you be voting?
Yeah, I will vote. I'll vote with a sort of heavy heart and think, well, you might as well, But also, I think I would encourage people to vote if that's what they want to do. But the important thing is that we realise that we can't hand over our political autonomy to the mainstream parties who are in the service of the corporations and not actually serving the needs of the general public. So we need to take action in solidarity with our communities as well.
Sarah, do you applaud Alison's passion?
Yeah, I think it's right that you've got beliefs. But one thing that they didn't show yesterday, she said she wants people to have respect for each other. She certainly didn't respect Nigel Farage or anybody else in that pub when they went in. The lady stood in front of a car with a baby to prove that, everyone should breastfeed. And I breastfed 3 children, but I don't like them, the way that they go about it, putting a baby in front of a car. It's totally unsafe. I just think that the way the far left go about their demonstrations just shows the irony that they call everybody else fascists.
Well, I mean, like I said, it was a very, very sweet and gentle day, and, people were singing and dancing and having fun, and I can understand why Mr. Farage might have been, felt the need to get up and leave the pub because his fascist views were being exposed by a large group of...
We had Charlie Kimber from the Socialist Workers' Party on earlier on, who said clearly on this, the Socialist Workers' Party said clearly in this programme, UKIP are not a fascist party. Coming from the Socialist Workers' Party, you'd think that would maybe swing it.
I think that, sorry, Sarah here, I think that, the mainstream media, don't help the cause. You've got the Socialist Workers' Party who say that UKIP are a fascist party, and they're not a fascist party. But yet they're demonised in most of the mainstream press. Every time any UKIP member or whatever puts a foot wrong, that's then, all of UKIP are like that. But when any other group puts one foot wrong, they're a lone wolf. You can't have it both ways.
I think it's all very well to sort of sit here and, play with semantics around whether they're fascist, whether they're racist.
You raise it. What about
I think the point is that if you're a Muslim person in this country, if you're a person who's a member of an oppressed group whose lives are put at
Let me ask you a question, Alison. You talk about... Let me ask you a question, Alison. Alison, let me ask you a question, because this has been raised by a lot of people this morning. There is not just a fascism of the right, there is a fascism of the left. There are some people, we know, there's a significant minority who are, for example, Islamists, who believe that in an ideal Sharia state, women should be stoned to death for adultery, gays should be executed, and there should be a death penalty for the abandonment of faith. Are they fascists?
Well, I tell you what is the main cause of the difficulties that have happened in the Middle East at the moment, and that is the imperialist wars that have come from this country.
Not asking that.
So what I'm saying is that the community...
Are people who hold those beliefs fascists?
As opposed to the state imposing violence upon groups. What we're talking about is we support the state imposing violence on minority groups. And if we do support the state imposing violence on minority groups, then you get these kind of extremist reactions. So what we need to do is work with our communities. What we need to do is build up our communities and not support racist groups.
Hi. Wigan.
Hi.
and Bridget in Birmingham, who is also there, and I'll speak to Darren in Lincolnshire first of all. Let me bring Darren in on this. Hello, Darren. Do join us.
Hi there.
Hi there, Darren.
Hi. My view is probably a little bit different here. First of all, I know that Nigel Farage is no lover of things like human rights. But fundamentally, it's on the statute books, it's law. And under the European conventions, he has a right to a private family life. Now, where do we get off as individuals behaving like children? I'm listening to this debate and I'm absolutely staggered at the way that the left and the right are portraying this. It's quite simple. We should be behaving as adults, and that means sitting down and having a conversation about this, not harassing anyone, be they Muslim or Nigel Farage, who's enjoying a private family time. It's as simple as that.
Well said, Darren. Well said.
Well, I mean,
Sarah here in Wigan. There was a demonstration in London on Saturday that I know of. And I know, a few UAF members, which is funded by the government, by the way, and anybody who pays any money to Unite also funds it. So, be aware where your money's going, actually. But the UAF, I know somebody whose children were dragged to London from Wigan, texting the father at 5 a.m, "We don't want to go, Dad, but if we tell Mum, she'll hit us." The guy actually recorded it. This is the far left. This is real nasty now. And like Darren says, grow up, have a proper debate about it, sit and talk sensibly. Don't be dragging children into aggressive demonstrations. And they are aggressive. Shouting, screaming is not nice.
Okay, Sarah. Sarah, stay there. Bridget. Hello, Bridget.
Hello.
You were at the protest yesterday. Did you hear what Sarah said? Don't aggressive demonstrations. What do you say to Sarah, Bridget?
Yes, I think I was. 4 coaches of people went down from Birmingham to that protest, including about 30 children of immigrants, children of asylum seekers, and they went because they wanted, because they don't feel safe in this society now. She talked about Farage having a right to a family life, but I'm afraid he doesn't think that other people have a right to a family life. He doesn't think that immigrants and asylum seekers and black and Asian people have a right to a family life.
That's absolutely nonsense. That's absolutely nonsense. You're putting words in Nigel Farage's mouth that has never been said. And this is the problem with the far right. And the media get on top of it and then spew out what you're saying Nigel has said. And he hasn't. He absolutely, we want to help asylum seekers.
Well, I think that, saying that children shouldn't have a right to an education for 6 years, that isn't a right to a normal family life or a normal life at all.
Did he say they shouldn't have a right to have an education?
Yes, he did. And also,
if I may,
is that Darren coming in?
Here. Sorry, I think we're missing a point here. Again, we're talking past each other here. Okay, we've lost the point. Okay. This is about if it's Nigel Farage or a British Muslim, a far left, a far right, a liberal, it doesn't matter. Fundamentally, we're British. And surely part of British values is about the right to speak, the right to have a view, the right to believe what you want to believe. That's what law is founded on. Since Magna Carta, that's what people have been fighting for.
I'm tolerant.
Absolutely.
We are one of the most tolerant countries in the world. But the far left and the far right don't seem very tolerant. And they make it sound that people in the mainstream aren't very tolerant. You're talking about people who are apparently the fright to live here. We are the most tolerant country. They're in the safest place.
I'm sorry, but the sort of racism that Nigel Farage is whipping up leads to things like Maz Salim, who spoke at the protest on Saturday. Her father was murdered in Birmingham. I know her because I'm from Birmingham. Her father was murdered in Birmingham a couple of years ago by a racist, and it's racists like that are whipped up by the sort of things that Nigel Farage is saying. So I'm sorry when you say
I'm sorry, but you can misinterpret what you want, but that's not exact. That is not how it is. The BNP have died, so you've got to focus on something else to keep your Hope Not Dope or whatever UAF going. You've got to look for something to demonstrate on. The rent-a-mob. It's just like Darren says, just debate it. Have a proper debate. Don't do rent-a-mob stuff. It doesn't do your cause any favours.
Would you say that to civil rights protesters through history, and would you say that to women's lib protesters throughout history? Would you just sit down?
No, we wouldn't. I think if I may again, I think you're missing the point here. Those protesters in Selma, for example, in the United States, perfectly fine. They were trying to campaign for civil rights. Women campaigning to actually get the vote, to get equality. These things are fine. But this wasn't about equality that was being argued about. This is basically crossing a line. This is basically affecting children, affecting someone out for a private life.
Well, it exactly was about equality. If Nigel
Farage was there, if Nigel Farage was giving a photo opportunity, excuse me.
Wait a minute, everyone. You've made your points all very well. Maria Hutchings is a mother who challenged Tony Blair on live TV. Hello.
Hello, good morning, Nicky.
Good morning. Just talk us through what happened.
Well, at the time, my son was at a special needs school in Essex, where we felt the school might be closed down. I had lost his speech therapy that I'd had before for him. I'd been told by the social workers that my support of 1 hour every week was going to be cut to 1 hour every other week. And essentially, I went on The Right Stuff on TV when Tony Blair did his first audience debate in the election 2005 in the run-up in February. And I basically thought the only way that I'm going to get the Prime Minister to tell him how I feel is to do something where there would be a lot of publicity and the issue would be debated.
And the reaction?
Well, it was quite amazing, really. I literally got within 2 feet of Tony Blair and shouted at him because I really believed that he didn't understand the
What did you shout?
issues. Well, he talked about discipline in schools and how things were improving in schools. It was a general question, and I just basically said what he just said was rubbish. He then said to me to speak to me after the show, and I went into a room with him with another lady who was in the audience, who had an autistic child by pure coincidence, and I had a chat with him then, and then the whole thing played out for a much longer time in the media, and the issue got debated more. But I firmly believe that people do have a right to fight for things that they passionately believe in, but there's a time and a place, and I think, that politicians have got a right to have their family time and have their private time. I was in a by-election in 2013 where the press were turning up at my mother's door, were parking outside my neighbours' doors, up on our pavements.
So if it's good enough for the press, it's good enough for the public to do it?
Well,
in a sense?
Not actually going into trying to get into people's homes.
No, but a pub it's a public arena in a sense, isn't it?
Well, there has to be a line. There has to be a line. If somebody like Tony Blair goes into an audience participation thing, that's one thing.
Did you find him charming?
No, I didn't actually. Funny, the weird thing was, Nicky, that I had been a Labour supporter before. I'd read every book I could get on Tony Blair, and I actually thought that he was going to be the panacea for the UK in 1997. So it's quite weird that just 8 years later... 8 years later...
Panacea to pariah.
Exactly. But yes, I do believe that we're going to see more of this before the election, because this is a time when the press are out and about and you're going to get your headlines and get people talking about things.
Well, it's great talking to you, Maria. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Take care. Sorry, Bridget and Darren's still with us. Bridget, you'd do it all again, yeah?
I certainly would, but a lot of people who went down for the first time in a protest, I think, felt very let down at the fact that it wasn't covered by the mainstream media, and I think that's one of the reasons. I think that protests with tens of thousands of people are actually much more effective than smaller protests. But I defend anybody's right to protest in any way, whatever, because I think the sort of views that Nigel Farage is coming out with, the vile racism and the way he's using that in this election, he can't complain then.
You think it's vile racism? A lot of people think it's absolutely not, and a lot of people think, is it support? They've got significant support.
Can I just chip in here?
Are there a lot of... go on, Darren. Yeah.
Well, obviously, I'm not going to disagree with the right to protest, but the obvious sort of counter to that is, so does that mean that it's okay for the EDL to protest? Is that what you're arguing?
Is it, Bridget?
No, I don't think it's all right for the EDL to protest because the EDL are fascist.
You got it both ways. Perhaps some people are saying that the left is undemocratic.
Because when the EDL protest, and I've seen them in Birmingham many times, what happens is that if you're black or Asian...
Is it okay, Bridget, for those people burning poppies, to burn poppies, those Anjem Chowdhury and that Muslim group to burn poppies? Is that okay?
Well, I'm not talking about the burning of poppies. I'm talking
that's what I'm asking you about.
EDL,
I'm asking about different protests.
I don't think it's all right for the EDL to protest.
Is it okay for people to burn poppies?
I don't mind if people burn poppies.
There we are. Thank you very much. It's all from us. Thank you so much for listening.
That was Nicky Campbell. This is Adrian Chiles here with 5 Live Daily. The threat from Islamist extremism can't be underestimated. We'll be hearing the Home Secretary's plan, the Tories' plan, to tackle it.
First for breaking news and the best live sport.